Ever felt a chill by a canal? The UK's waterways are home to eerie stories of lost souls and ghostly hauntings. Let's uncover 15 haunted canals where secrets lie beneath the surface. 1. Montgomery Canal, Wales. The Montgomery Canal, snaking through the Welsh countryside, holds a dark secret beneath its serene surface. Many years ago, a young woman named Eleanor, whose heart had been shattered by a cruel betrayal, walked the towpath late at night. Despair clouded her mind, and in a tragic moment of overwhelming sadness, she cast herself into the cold, still waters of the canal. Her body was never found, but her presence never left the waterway. Now, years later, those who dare to walk along the canal at dusk claim to hear the softest, most haunting of cries. It's as if Eleanor's voice floats on the evening breeze, a whispered plea for salvation that never comes. Locals say that on foggy nights, her figure can be seen, a pale, glowing shape drifting silently along the edge of the canal. Her long, flowing gown ripples, eerily suspended in the mist, as though she's walking in an eternal limbo. Visitors who try to venture closer are often overcome with an unshakable sense of sorrow, as though they are drowning in her sadness. Many swear they've seen her disappear beneath the surface, her ghostly form fading into the black waters, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions. The lady in white still haunts the canal, forever seeking what was lost, and no one can truly say if she will ever find peace. 2. Shropshire Union Canal. The Shropshire Union Canal, winding its way through the heart of England, is a seemingly tranquil waterway. But for those who venture here at night, its peaceful surface belies the horrific tales that linger beneath. One such tale speaks of two lovers locked in a forbidden romance. Their families forbade them to be together, yet they tried to escape under the cover of darkness. But fate was cruel. On a stormy night, their boat capsized, and the turbulent waters claimed both lives. Though they were pulled from the depths, their love was never meant to be. Their spirits, however, would never leave the canal. At night, the whispers of their tragic love can still be heard drifting over the water. Some say they've seen the silhouettes of two figures, hand in hand, walking along the towpath in the moonlight. But when they call out to the lovers, the figures vanish into the mist, leaving nothing but a chill in the air. The canal, it seems, is still haunted by the love they lost, and those who pass through these waters late at night can feel the weight of their unresolved yearning. If you listen closely, you may hear the soft sound of their voices calling to each other, a love that even death cannot sever. 3. Blisworth Tunnel. Deep within the Blisworth Tunnel, hidden from the world, a dark and tragic story unfolds. During its construction, a young worker named Thomas fell to his death in the shaft while digging through the earth. His body was never recovered, and his untimely death left a lingering presence in the tunnel. Those who have ventured through the tunnel at night describe an overwhelming sense of dread. The air is thick with the weight of his spirit, and the darkness seems to close in around them. A soft sound, like footsteps, can be heard echoing in the distance. When you turn to look, the footsteps stop, but the air grows heavier, colder. Some claim that in the deepest part of the tunnel, a shadowy figure appears, just barely visible in the dim light. His face is never fully seen, but his mournful gaze is enough to send chills down your spine. As you pass by, there's a strange sensation of being watched, of being followed, and no matter how quickly you move, the footsteps seem to follow just a step behind. Is it Thomas, still searching for the answers to the tragedy of his untimely death. Many leave the tunnel with an unsettling sense of unease, as though the spirit of the worker will never rest until the truth of his death is revealed. 4. Huddersfield Narrow Canal. The Huddersfield Narrow Canal is often considered a peaceful place, but its waters have been stained with the tragedy of a man's life lost too soon. Long ago, a canal worker fell into the cold, dark water and drowned, his life slipping away unnoticed in the silent currents. Though his body was eventually found, the mystery surrounding his death remained unsolved. Some say he was pushed, others say it was an accident. But what remains certain is that his spirit has never left the canal. At night, the air around the canal grows thick and heavy, filled with an oppressive silence. Those who walk along the towpath often feel as though they are being watched, and the further they venture, the more intense the feeling becomes. Footsteps echo behind them, the sound soft but unmistakable, as though someone is following, yet when they turn, no one is there. Some have even reported seeing a shadowy figure near the water's edge, its features obscured by the fog. When they approach, the figure vanishes without a trace, leaving only a lingering sense of unease. The spirit of the canal worker is still said to haunt the towpath, his sorrowful gaze never leaving the waters that claimed his life. 5. Trent and Mersey Canal. The Trent and Mersey Canal, known for its scenic views, is home to a heartbreaking story of lost love. A young bride, on her wedding night, crossed the canal with her new husband, but fate was cruel, and a storm capsized their boat, drowning the bride. Her body was never recovered, and her spirit, it is said, haunts the canal, forever searching for her lost love. On stormy nights, travelers along the canal hear the faintest sound of wedding bells tolling in the distance. The sound seems to rise from the water itself, carrying with it a sense of mourning and longing. Some have reported seeing a faint figure near the water's edge, glowing in the mist, her wedding gown flowing around her like a ghostly shroud. Others have felt an overwhelming sense of grief, as though they are standing on the edge of a tragedy that can never be undone. The bride's spirit drifts in silence, waiting for a love that will never return, and those who encounter her will never forget the sorrow that lingers in her wake. 6. The Rochdale Canal. The Rochdale Canal, running through the industrial heart of England, hides a tragic tale of a child's death. One fateful day, a young boy fell into the water and drowned, his body never recovered. Some say his spirit still haunts the canal, his cries echoing through the stillness of the water. At night, passers-by often hear faint sobs, as though the boy is still calling out for help. Others have seen his shadowy form near the water's edge, his face twisted in desperation. The child's cries can sometimes be heard above the rustling of the wind, and those who venture too close to the canal have reported an overwhelming sensation of being pulled toward the water. Whether it is his spirit or the canal itself, no one can say for sure, but the boy's restless presence haunts the waterway, forever calling out for those who can hear him. 7. The Coventry Canal. The Coventry Canal, winding through the industrial landscape, is home to the restless spirit of a lockkeeper who mysteriously vanished one night. He had been a fixture of the canal for years, but one evening he simply disappeared, never to be seen again. His body was found floating in the water days later, but the cause of his death was a mystery that still lingers. Some believe his spirit still haunts the canal, forever guarding the locks he once watched over. Those who pass through the canal at night report hearing the sounds of chains rattling, as though the locks are being opened and closed on their own. Others claim to see a shadowy figure standing near the water's edge, watching with unblinking eyes. As they approach, the figure melts into the darkness, leaving behind an unsettling feeling of being watched. 8. The Monmouthshire and Brecon Canal. The Monmouthshire and Brecon Canal, snaking its way through the lush Welsh countryside, is as picturesque as it is unsettling. The waters have long been associated with a tragic tale that never seems to fade. A young woman named Liza, desperate to escape an abusive relationship, fled her home and boarded a boat alone, hoping to start anew. But the fates were unkind. Caught in a terrible storm, her boat capsized and Liza drowned in the dark, frigid waters of the canal. Her body was never recovered, but her spirit, heartbroken and alone, still wanders the waterway to this day. At night, when the fog rolls in, walkers along the canal have reported hearing soft cries, almost like a woman calling out for help. Some swear the cries are unmistakably those of Liza, lost forever in the very canal she had hoped would offer her freedom. Others have seen a pale figure in the mist, her drenched hair hanging loosely, her face filled with sorrow. She drifts silently along the water's edge, staring longingly at the distant shore, where her hopes of escape were dashed. The sadness in the air is so palpable that even the bravest dare not linger too long. When the wind picks up, the eerie sound of sobbing lingers, leaving an undeniable sense of grief that even the surrounding beauty cannot conceal. 9. The Regent's Canal. The Regent's Canal, running through the heart of London, carries with it the whispers of a tragic and unsettling past. Once a busy route for trade and transportation, the canal has become the site of an eerie tale that still haunts its waters. Many years ago, a young woman named Evelyn was pushed into the canal by a jealous lover. She drowned, her body drifting aimlessly until it was found days later. But what remains after all these years is her restless spirit, who cannot find peace. Locals often hear her cries on still nights, carried by the wind and the ripple of the water. Those who venture along the canal late at night sometimes feel a cold breeze sweep past them, as if a presence has just brushed by. In the dim light, some have seen her shadowy figure standing by the water's edge, her eyes dark and full of sorrow, her face twisted in both grief and anger. She is said to haunt the canal, forever searching for the man who betrayed her. On foggy evenings, her faint silhouette can be seen walking the towpath, her movements ghostly and slow, as if she's waiting for something, or someone, that will never come. 10. Kennet and Avon Canal. The Kennet and Avon Canal, stretching across the countryside of southern England, has long been associated with an unsettling and heartbreaking legend. A young bride, full of hope on her wedding day, crossed the canal with her new husband. But disaster struck when their boat was caught in a fierce storm, capsizing and sending the bride into the cold waters below. She drowned, her body lost to the deep. The husband, though shaken, survived, but the bride's spirit never left. Now, on stormy nights, people along the canal report hearing wedding bells, faintly tolling in the distance, carried on the wind, despite there being no celebration. The eerie sound seems to hover over the waters, mixing with the mournful lapping of the waves. Others claim they've seen the faint, glowing figure of the bride, her dress billowing in the wind, standing by the water's edge as though she's waiting for someone to find her. The air becomes unnervingly cold when she's near, and many who have seen her say they feel an overwhelming sense of sorrow and longing, as if the very land mourns her loss. The ghostly bride drifts through the mists, forever waiting for the life she was denied. 11. Oxford Canal. The Oxford Canal, one of the oldest and most beautiful in England, is far from a peaceful place when night falls. Beneath the tranquil surface lies a chilling story that dates back centuries. A young man, whose name has been lost to time, was working late one evening along the canal. He was found floating in the water the next morning, but there was no sign of foul play. No one could explain his death, and whispers quickly spread that his death was no accident. On dark, quiet nights, people walking along the canal hear faint footsteps echoing behind them. But when they turn around, no one is there. Some say the young man's restless spirit still roams the canal, forever searching for answers that remain out of reach. Others have seen his ghostly figure near the water's edge, his face pale and distorted, his eyes full of sorrow. The feeling of being watched intensifies as the canal seems to whisper its tragic tale through the wind and the water. No one truly knows the truth of what happened to him, but his spirit is said to linger, bound to the canal where his life was taken. 12. Bridgewater Canal. The Bridgewater Canal, a historic waterway in the northwest of England, is a place where the living have long coexisted with the dead. Among the many stories of hauntings, there is one particularly chilling legend about a canal worker who disappeared one night, never to be seen again. The man had been employed for years, known for his long shifts along the towpath, but one fateful night, he vanished without a trace. Despite extensive searches, there was no sign of him. Ever since, those who walk the canal at night report strange occurrences, footsteps following them, whispers in the darkness, and a sense that someone is watching. It is said that the worker's spirit still roams the waterway, unable to rest. Some claim they see his figure standing at the canal's edge, watching them silently from the shadows. But when they approach, the figure dissolves into the mist, leaving only a faint chill in the air. The man's fate remains a mystery, but his restless spirit is said to walk the canal, forever waiting to be found. 13. Erewash Canal. The Erewash Canal, though peaceful and quiet during the day, has a dark and sinister reputation. One particularly horrifying tale centers on a family who lived along the canal. The father, a fisherman, was known for his nightly excursions on the water. One fateful evening, he took his boat out, but was never seen again. His family waited for him to return, but the only thing they found was his boat, adrift on the canal. The father's body was never found, and his family was left in anguish, never knowing what had happened. Those who have ventured to the canal at night report hearing the sounds of a boat scraping against the water, as though something is drifting just out of view. Some say they hear the voice of a man calling for help, his voice filled with desperation. Others claim to have seen a figure, cloaked in shadow, standing on the banks of the canal. As they approach, the figure dissolves into the fog, leaving behind only an unsettling sense of dread. The fisherman's restless spirit seems to linger, forever searching for answers he will never find. 14. Worcester and Birmingham Canal. The Worcester and Birmingham Canal, cutting through the heart of England, hides a tragic secret beneath its calm surface. In the early 19th century, a young woman named Mary, whose life was filled with dreams of love and a better future, found herself on the canal one fateful evening. But as she crossed, a violent quarrel broke out between her and a fellow passenger. The argument escalated, and in a moment of rage, Mary was thrown into the cold water. She drowned before anyone could save her. Mary's spirit is said to haunt the canal to this day, her sorrowful cries echoing across the water, heard only in the stillness of night. Some who walk the canal's banks at night report feeling a sudden chill, followed by the sense of a presence nearby. Others have seen a figure, faint and pale, standing near the water's edge, looking out over the dark water as if waiting for something or someone that will never return. The canal is forever haunted by her tragic fate, and it is said that the echoes of her cries can still be heard whenever the night is at its darkest. 15. Macclesfield Canal. The Macclesfield Canal, winding its way through the picturesque Cheshire countryside, holds a chilling tale of an innocent life lost too soon. A young boy, full of life and excitement, was playing near the canal one fateful evening when he lost his footing and fell into the water. Despite frantic efforts to save him, the boy drowned, and his body was later discovered floating in the cold waters. His family, devastated by the loss, never fully recovered. Some say that the boy's spirit still lingers along the canal, his laughter echoing through the night air. Those who walk the canal at dusk sometimes feel an eerie presence, as though they are being watched. Others have heard the sounds of splashing water, as if someone is struggling to stay afloat, only to turn and find no one there. The boy's spirit is said to appear at the water's edge, his innocent face full of longing, as if he is still waiting to be saved. These spine-chilling tales are just the beginning. Creepy Experience continues to bring you the most unsettling stories of haunted canals across the UK. Are you brave enough to explore these eerie waterways and uncover their dark secrets? Only the boldest dare to venture near these haunted waters. Will you?